Om Yam Brahma Varunendra Ruddhamarudastun Divyaistavaihi Vedai Sangapadakramopanisadaihi Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavasthita Tadgatena Manasa Pashyendi Yam Yogino Yasyantam Navidussura Suraganaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha. Om Sruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavad Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram. We are continuing our discussion on the 21st verse of the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Shankaracharya's commentary in Sanskrit and his interpretation in English. So here is a view put forward by the opponent. So the opponent belongs to a school of philosophy known as the Purva Mimamsa, which focuses on the Karma Kanda of the Vedic literature. And according to the Purva Mimamsakas, or the philosophers of ritualism, the only or the central theme of the whole Vedic literature is pursuing the path of dharma. Dharma not as understood in the Buddhist tradition, but dharma as something that provides a happy life in this world and a happy life after death. So the only way to ensure, to guarantee happiness in this empirical life and after death is the performance of certain prescribed rituals which are prescribed in the Karma Kanda of Vedic literature, and also more specifically in the Sutras of Jaimini, who is the original exponent of the school of ritualism in the Acharya of Purva Mimamsa system. It's called Jaimini Sutras. So according to them, karma can never be given up. Karma, we should remember, the word karma in this context of discussion, there is a debate between the philosophy of ritualism and Shankaracharya. The word karma has got a very limited and a very fixed meaning. Karma here means rituals. Rituals performed according to the injunctions given in the Smarta or Srauda literature. There are Saptahavir Yajnas and there are Soma Yajnas which belong to the Srauda tradition. Then there are other Samskaras, Panchamaha Yajnas, which belong to the Smarta tradition. In fact, Nitya Naimitya Karmas, all the formal rituals performed with a definite purpose in mind belong to this category. Because the Purva Mimamsakas have already won their debate against the Buddhists who denied Vedic authority. So when they defeated the Buddhist exponents in the 5th, 6th centuries, the Purva Mimamsakas asserted that rituals constitute the essence of the Vedas. We have to remember, when we are discussing Buddhism, we have to remember one very important principle. Buddhism, which the Purva Mimamsakas debated with, from 4th to about 6th, 7th centuries AD, was totally different from the original teachings of Buddhism. Buddha's philosophy was a kind of spiritual humanism based on fundamental ethical values and ethical life in this world. Chattvari Arya Satyani, the Four Noble Truths, and the Eightfold Discipline, which according to Buddhist tradition takes us to liberation or nirvana. That was not the Buddhist tradition which the Purva Mimamsakas had to confront in the 4th, 5th and 6th, 7th centuries. Buddhism had already degenerated a lot and have gone far away from the original teachings of Buddhism. So in this debate, in this dialectical, polemical confrontation between the philosophers of ritualism, Vedic ritualism, and Buddhists, the Purvamimamsakas under the leadership of Prabhakara and Kumarila Bhatta, his senior exponent of Purvamimamsa, they won this debate, and they won the debate. They asserted that the central theme of Purvamimamsa system, the central theme of Vedic literature, the whole of Vedic literature was not liberation or spiritual realization, but the continued performance of external rituals, Vedic rituals. So Shankaracharya is debating with this Purvamimamsa school. So his concern was to assert the spiritual philosophy of the Vedic literature. He gave some importance to the Purvamimamsa ritualism. He said that those who are not spiritually advanced enough to pursue the path of the highest spiritual realization, those who have not reached that level of spiritual evolution, can continue the performance of Vedic rituals like yajnas, yagas, adiratras, vajapeya, agnishtoma, and so on. But there are certainly a number of great spiritual seekers, advanced spiritual seekers, who are not concerned about empirical or secular welfare or prosperity in this world, or enjoyment of the same prosperity in afterlife. So such advanced spiritual seekers need not perform any of these rituals. Such advanced seekers, such advanced spiritual aspirants can certainly follow the path of nivritti, or the highest spiritual realization, and moksha. They are not to be burdened with any obligation to continue any of these Vedic rituals. So wherever in Vedic literature certain rituals are prescribed, they are not meant for the highest spiritual seekers. They are only meant for those who have not reached the highest level of spiritual evolution. Because they have to, first of all, continue the performance of Vedic rituals, then they should continue the performance of Vedic rituals with any definite purpose or motive, and as a result of this performance of rituals without any motive, without any selfish purpose, their mind will become pure. It's called Chitta Shuddhi, and when the mind becomes pure, then certainly they will become fit for the highest spiritual knowledge, Jnana Prapti, and gradually moksha. Karmanishthayaha Chitta Shuddhi dvarena Purushartha Heduttam na Swadandrena Jnana Nishtatu Swadandrena Purushartha Heduhu Anya Nabeksha. Bhashyam says elsewhere in the same commentary and in many other commentaries. Of course, the words are slightly altered. So the discussion is now continuing. Shankaracharya stated that wherever there are karmas or rituals prescribed in the Vedic literature, they are meant only for avidwan. That's a word used in the commentary. Avidwan, literary meaning of word avidwan is the ignorant person. But that's not really the true implication here. The implication is this: those who are ignorant of the fact that the highest purpose of human life is realization of God. Those who are not ignorant, those who are ignorant of the fact, those who are totally ignorant of the fact, that the highest purpose of human life is spiritual liberation. There are many people who are ignorant of this basic truth, and such people can certainly follow the path of rituals, and through the performance of these rituals, without any definite purpose, without any selfish motive, with total dedication, at the same time total detachment, they will advance in their spiritual life. Their mind will become pure, and then they will certainly be fit for the highest spiritual pursuit of liberation. So Bhashyakara says, he continues the statement again. There is an objection raised by the Purvamimamsa philosopher. Nanu vidya api avidushaha eva vidhiyedi vidya vidyasya pishtaveshanavat vidya vidhana anarthakyat tatra avidushaka karmani vidhiyende na vidushaidi visheshana upapadyate. So the Purvamimamsa says, he asked the Advaita, you said that Vidya, the highest spiritual knowledge, is meant for Vidwan, and Karma, the rituals, are prescribed for Avidwan. This was your statement. Now, why should you give Vidya to a Vidwan? Somebody who is already knowledgeable, who is well informed already, there is no need for you to teach him again. It will be like grinding the corn again and again. It's already powdered, it's already ground. Again you continue grinding it again and again. It is absolutely a useless effort. So, if karma is meant for avidwan, then vidya also is meant for avidwan, because the vidwan or the more advanced spiritual seeker who have known the real purpose of human life is already aware of it. He has got the knowledge. So there is no need for you to teach him again. So if karma is meant for avidwan, then vidya also is meant for avidwan. Then where is the difference? There is no difference. So both karma and also vidya, the highest spiritual knowledge, both are meant for avidwan. This is the argument of the Purvapakshi. Here, Purvapakshi forgets one important principle. That is, the word vidwan here means mumukshu. So, mumukshu is a person who is an adhikari for sarva karma sannyasa. Avidwan is an adhikari in vihida karmas, and mumukshu is an adhikari for sarva karma sannyasa, because the mumukshu has already acquired sadhana sadushtayam nitya nitya vastu viveka ihamutra phalabhoga viraga samadhi prasambhati and mumukshutvam. So you cannot really become a great spiritual aspirant looking for the highest spiritual realization unless you have evolved, unless you have developed a great sense of renunciation, unless you have completely given up desire for material pleasures, empirical pleasures. So you have become a mumukshu. You have become a great aspirant for liberation, for moksha. So such people who have already acquired a strong aspiration for spiritual liberation or moksha, they are the people who are fit for vidya. So by the word vidwan, what we mean is not the person who has realized the highest spiritual truth or aparoksha anubhuti, but rather who have already acquired sadhana sadushtaya sambhati, who have become a mumukshu. So that's a sense in which it should be taken. So that's a subject where we left in the last class. Now we are continuing the discussion. Here the Bhashyakara says it is really not so, because there is a difference. Na anushteyasya bhava bhava visheshu upapattehi. So there is a distinction and difference with regard to anishteyatva. I mean, the essence of obligation to perform certain rituals and the absence of that obligation. For mumukshus, for the highest spiritual aspirant looking for liberation, karma, there is no anishteyatvam for karma. Karma is not mandatory for him. And Bhashyakara continues giving the background. Agnihotradi Vidyartha Jnanotragalam Agnihotradi Karma Anega Sadhana Upasamhara Purvagam Anushteyam Kartaham Mama Kartavyam Ityevam Prakar Vijnanavataha Avidushaka Yatha Anushteyam Bhavati Nadu Tatha Na Jayate Ityadi Atmaswarupa Vidyartha Jnanotragala Bhavi Kinjit Anushteyam Bhavati. So here is an important discussion here. For those who are still looking for material pleasure, who are interested in empirical pleasures, when they read a scripture, and then when the scripture tells them, if you perform this particular Vedic ritual, you can have plenty of material wealth, and you can also continue the same enjoyment in heaven. So such people naturally anega sadhana upasamhara purvakam anushteyam. They consider, well, in that case, this karma is to be performed by me. So he may say, aham karta mama kartavyam, kartaham mama kartavyam ityevam pragara vijnanavatha vidushaka. So those who are not fit for the highest spiritual aspiration, those who have no sense of renunciation, those who do not want to give up their desire for material enjoyment, such people naturally consider these rituals to be performable by them. But on the other hand, highly advanced spiritual seekers who realize the truth, na jayate mriyate va kadajit nayam bhutva bhavidavana bhoyaha ajo nitya shashvatoyam purano na hanyate hanyamani sharire. Those who have read these shastras and also have done a lot of spiritual sadhanas and have already got a strong conviction that they are aja. Ajo nitya shashvatoyam purano. I am aja. I am beyond the Shadvikaras. Jayade asti vardhade viparinamade abhakshyate vinashyate. These are the 6 stages. I am the absolute reality. I am the all-pervading divine reality which always exists. So it is birthless because it always exists, and it will never die. It is deathless and birthless. And also it doesn't go through these different stages of evolution like asti, vardhade, viparinimade, abhakshyade, etc. Those who have realized this truth, those who have gone to an acharya, teacher, and studied the shastras and acquired sadhana chadushtaya sambhati, that is a sense of the real and unreal, and a sense of total renunciation of secular empirical pleasures, and also given up all desire for any kind of enjoyment in afterlife or heaven, and those who have acquired the qualities of self-control, moderation, self-restraint, and also who have developed a strong sense of desire not for material pleasures, a desire for spiritual liberation. That's the highest mumukshutvam, a strong aspiration for getting out of these endless cycles of life and death and rebirth. Because they have already read the shastras, I am aja, I am birthless, I am deathless. I am nitya, I am the immortal eternal reality. Shashvata. So those who have already reached this level of spiritual liberation, for them, nadu tatha dajayade ityadi atmaswarupa vidyartha jnanotragala bhavi kinjit anushteyam bhavati. For such great spiritual seekers, they are not supposed to have anything to do with any of these rituals, because they understand kintu naham karta na bhokta ityadi atmegatva akartruttvadi vishaya jnanat anyat na utpadyate ityesha vishesha bhavatyate. When they read these scriptures like Najayade Mrideva Kadachit, which explains the birthlessness, the deathlessness, the immortal, eternal nature of Atman. And when they get a conviction that I am that Atman, then they won't take any interest in the performance of any of these rituals. These rituals are relevant and important and necessary only for those who have not developed the highest spiritual aspiration. So that's the context. Ye punaha kartaham iti veti atmanam tasya mama idam kartavyam iti avasyam bhavini buddhisya tadabekshaya sadhikriyade iti tam pradikarmani saja vidwan ubhau tau navijanita iti vajanat. So the particular Gita verse is referred to here, that important verse. We already discussed this elaborately earlier. Ubhau tau navijanito ye enam veti handaram yaschenam mandide kadam ubhau tau navijanito nayam handina hanyate. Those who think that they are the doers and also they are the enjoyers of the results of their actions, they do not know the true nature of Atman, because they consider that they are the Karta and they are the Bhokta. The Bhashyam continues. Visheshidasya cha vidushaka karma aksheva vajana katham sapurusha iti. So the Bhashyam establishes, we already discussed this earlier, that is katham sapurusha partha kam ghata iti gantikam. It is not in the form of a question, rather it is a total denial of any possibility of Kartrutva and Bhoktrutva for those who have understood their true nature, that they are the birthless, the deathless, the all-pervading, the immanent, the omnipresent, the transcendental, absolute reality. Tasmat Visheshidasya Abhikriyatmadarshino Vidushaka Mumukshoscha Sarvakarma Sannyase Eva Adhikaraka. Therefore, the Bhashyam says, those who are enlightened and who have realized that they are the Atman, which is eternal, which is beyond any change, and those who have become mumukshus, the aspirants for the highest spiritual liberation, they are fit only for the renunciation of all karmas. Again, we should remember, renunciation of all Vedic rituals. That is the sense in which the word is used. We have to remember again and again that when Shankaracharya talks about the fact that the highest Atmajnani or the highest Mumukshu, the spiritual seeker who is in pursuit of the highest spiritual realization, is an adhikari for Sarva Karma Sannyasa, or Sarva Karma Sannyasa is an important prelude to Sannyasa. Sarva Karma Sannyasa, giving up all rituals, is a necessary prelude to real sannyasa. What he means is this: they should give up the highest spiritual seekers, and also for the Atmajnani, normally give up all kinds of rituals, because these Vedic rituals prescribed in the Mimamsa texts are supposed to be performed by people who have a strong desire for empirical, secular, material prosperity, and for continuing the enjoyment of the same prosperity even after death. He is not talking about giving up secular activities. This is very, very important to remember. When Bhashyam uses the word Sarva Karma Sannyasa, Shankaracharya does not mean that a sannyasi or the highest spiritual seeker should give up all activities, both secular and shastric or Vedic. Those who are aspirants of the highest sannyasa should give up all formal rituals, performance of all Vaidika, Smarta, Srauda rituals, because these rituals are to be performed by people who are not fit, who are not ready or not willing to pursue the highest spiritual truth, the highest spiritual liberation. That's why, in fact, Lord Krishna himself makes a statement in the 3rd chapter, 3rd verse, in response to Arjuna's question, Vyamisreneva vakena buddhim mohayasivame tad ekam vada nischitya yena sreyogam apniyat. Here is a question put to Lord Krishna by Arjuna. After listening to the whole exposition of Vedanta in the 2nd chapter, which of course we are going through right now, Lord Krishna also gave a hint of certain important principles of Karma Yoga. Buddhi yukto jahadiha ube sugradushkude tasman yoga yujyasa yoga karmasu gausyalam. Yogastha kura karmani sangam tektva dhananjaya siddha siddho samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. These are the verses in the 2nd chapter. In these verses, Lord Krishna says, one should give up laziness and lethargy and should perform his or her duties and responsibilities with detachment. Yogastha kura karmani sangam tektva karotyaka. Siddhya siddho samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. The psychology and philosophy of Karma Yoga is explained here. Without caring for the result, whether you are going to gain what you are expecting to gain from this action or not, without any kind of obsessive attachment to the result, you should perform your duty, perform your obligation with total concentration and shraddha. Buddhi yukto jagadiha ube sugarduskri tasma yoga yujyasa yoga karmasu gausyalam. So the practice of this detachment to the results of what you are doing, at the same time doing with full concentration. This is the psychology of Karma Yoga. So these 2 verses are already given in the 2nd chapter. Now Lord Krishna was giving here a general picture of Karma Yoga. I mean, how one should continue the performance of one's duties and responsibilities with a sense of detachment. After listening to this, Arjuna got slightly confused. The reason for Arjuna's confusion was this. Lord Krishna had already explained the highest spiritual philosophy, Advaita philosophy, and he also emphasized that highest spiritual seeker should give up all actions, all rituals. Arjuna understood differently. Arjuna thought one can give up all work. That's what he was looking for. He wanted to avoid his duties and responsibilities and obligations, want to run away from the battlefield. He was trying to get a justification for not doing his duty. And Krishna's main task was to bring him to a sense of duties and responsibilities. And so this apparent contradiction, not real contradiction, apparent contradiction, created some confusion in Arjuna's mind. Lord Krishna taught him the highest Vedanta philosophy, the science of sannyasa. It was not Krishna did not ask him to become a monk. Lord Krishna did not ask Arjuna to give up all activities. Lord Krishna was expounding a great spiritual philosophy. It was not a prescription for Arjuna. In fact, Krishna's prescription for Arjuna was doing his duty properly. And when Arjuna wanted to become a monk, Lord Krishna said, no, you should do your duty. But in the course of the discussion of 2nd chapter, Lord Krishna mentioned Sarva Karma Sannyasa as a part of the highest spiritual liberation, as a great ideal, not meant for Arjuna, but in general, as a part of a detailed philosophical exposition of the highest spiritual philosophy of Sanatana Dharma. And then he also gave a hint of the psychology and philosophy of Karma Yoga. So Arjuna was confused what he should choose. He would have tried, if possible, he would have chosen inaction at any cost. But inaction or non-performance was not meant for Arjuna. Arjuna was not a spiritual seeker of the highest order. So Arjuna is asking that question. Vyamisrena eva vakena buddhim mohayasi vame tad ekam vada nischitya yena sriyogam apniyat. By the exposition of this great philosophy in the last chapter, second chapter, you have created a lot of confusion in my mind. This verse in the second verse of the third chapter. So tell me exactly what I should do with certainty. What's my path so that I can follow that? In answer to this question, Lord Krishna makes it very clear. Lokesmin dividha nishtha pura prokta maya anagha jnana yogena sankhyanam karma yogena yoginam. In this world, from the very beginning, I have taught two paths. That is the path of Sankhyas. That is, Sankhya means the path of knowledge. For those who are more highly evolved in spiritual life, and the path of Karma Yoga for yogis. So, Lord Krishna says what Bhashyam has been saying till now. Those who have reached the highest level of spiritual evolution through the performance of their duties and acquire Chitta Shuddhi and fitness for Jnana Prapti, for them there is no need to perform any rituals. They are fit for the highest liberation. For others who have not reached that level of spiritual evolution, they must perform duties, rituals, everything with great Shraddha. So it depends upon Adhikaritvam. That's the central message of the statement in the Bhashya. Na anushteyasya bhava abhava vishesha vapattehi. Now we are continuing discussion. Atayava Bhagavan Narayanaha Sankhyan vidushaga avidushascha karmenaha pravibhajya dvenishte grahayedi jnana yogena sankhyanam karma yogena yoginam. We already discussed this. So Lord Krishna classifies spiritual seekers into two categories, classifying Sankhyas as the more enlightened and those who are fit for Karma Yoga as less enlightened. We should remember, it is not any kind of discrimination. Rather, Lord Krishna says, from the very beginning, I have taught two paths depending upon where you stand. If you are in the kindergarten, then I will teach you how to work hard and reach a primary school. If you are in the primary school, then I will teach you how to work hard so that you can join a college. And if you have got a master's degree, then I will teach you how to go beyond that, how to go ahead again, how to get a PhD. You cannot teach the lessons meant for a master's degree aspirant. You cannot teach them what is meant for the primary school student. And you cannot teach for the primary student what is meant for a PhD student. So you have to find out where you stand and then move forward to gradual spiritual evolution. That's the principle behind. Tathacha putraya aha bhagavan vyasaha dvavimau panthanu. That is a Mahabharata Shanti Parva. It is referred to here. Tathacha kriyapadhaschaiva purastat paschat sannyasaschaidi. So Bhashyam is referring to a statement in the Mahabharata which we are going to discuss elaborately now. The Mahabharata, as a well-known verse, Dvavima Vauta Panthanu Yatra Veda Pradishtidaha Pravritti Lakshano Dharmo Nivrittischa Vibhavitaha. It comes in the Mahabharata Shanti Parva 241, 6th verse. Wherever Vedic Dharma, Vedic way of life prevails, these twofold parts are to be followed. Though imo atha panthano, Yatra Veda Pradishthidah. Wherever Vaidika Dharma is followed, prevailing, the Pravarti Dharma, Nivritti Dharma, these are the two parts. Those who are still in the process of, let us say, primary school, they should work hard at their level. They should stick to Pravarti Dharma, doing their duties, rituals, everything properly, with great Shraddha, with great devotion, and a sense of sanctity and sacredness. That will enable them to evolve further. Just as a school student, if he works hard and gets a very high degree, he can one day hope to reach Harvard or Stanford. But he cannot straight away go to Stanford. But those who have reached a very high level of academic distinction can certainly aspire to get admission in a high-profile university like Stanford, Oxford or Harvard. So depends upon where we stand so that we can evolve further to the next stage of evolution and growth. Evameva vibhagam punah punah darsayishyati Bhagavan Tattwavittu Mahabahu etc. Ahankara vimudhatma kartakam iti manyati etc. Atattavittu ahankara vimudhatma kartakam iti manyati tattavittu nahankaromi iti. These are all verses from the Gita, 3rd chapter, 27th and 28th verse. Tathaja sarva karmani manasa sannyasyaaste sukham vasi etc. These are all very, very important references from Bhagavad Gita. So we will take up these verses right now. The first one is this. Here there is a reference to the 27th verse of the 3rd chapter, the 27th verse, that is Ahankara vimudhatma kartakam iti manyate. The 27th verse. The verse is Prakriti kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasya Ahankara vimudhatma kartakam iti manyate. The point is, we all work according to our samskaras, vrittis, vasanas, sankalpas and so on. And these samskaras, which together called karma, vritti, samskara, vasana, sankalpa, chakram, which means kind of cycle. Whatever we do, whatever verbal action, a word we speak, a deed we do, a thought we think, all these will leave behind a residual effect. It's called vritti. In Patanjali Yoga Sutra also it's called a vritti. And this vritti can become samskara, it can become a tendency. Tendency can become a strong action-oriented impulse, can become a vasana. Vasana can become a sankalpa. Sankalpa will again lead to the repetition of the same action. If the result of the action is pleasant, or avoiding the action if the result of the action was unpleasant. When we do a noble deed, the result of that action, the noble deed, doesn't come to an end when the action is over. It produces a kind of psychic residual effect in our mind. Its immediate evolute is vritti, and later it can function as a tendency or an attitude. If the action was unpleasant and the result was unpleasant, this tendency will work to dissuade us from continuing or repeating that action. If the result was very happy and pleasant, then we may be prompted to do that work again, even though it may not be necessary. So a karma leaves behind a residual effects called vritti, and it becomes a samskara, and it can become a vasana, an impulse, and that may again lead to a decision to continue the action or to discontinue the action depending upon the type of action and the type of result, happy or unhappy result. And so this is called karma samskara chakram, is a kind of wheel, a kind of psychic wheel. And these vrittis, vasanas, samskaras, and of course actions are all guided by three gunas: sattva guna, rajo guna and tamo guna. So impelled by these sattva guna, rajo guna, tamo guna, which constitute our nature, we do actions, and those actions produce result, and these results later become the constitution of our character, and accordingly we continue doing things. We are impelled by these vrittis, vasanas and samskaras, which are again influenced by the three gunas: sattva guna, rajo guna, tamo guna. That's why Bhashyakara says, Prakrutehi prakriti pradhanam sattva rajas tamasam gunanam samyavastha tasya prakritehi gunehi vikarehi karikaran rupehi, etc., which we are not going to discuss now. We will discuss this particular verse again later. So this is the verse which Shankaracharya is referring to when he says Edameva vibhagam puna puna darsishyati Bhagavan. So Bhashyakara says Lord Krishna will take up this subject again when we reach the third chapter. So some of these verses are just implied here. The second verse that's mentioned is Tattwavittu naham karomi iti manye. So the 27th verse is an indication of how a person who is not highly evolved spiritually behaves. And the 28th verse demonstrates how a spiritually advanced person continues all activities but remains totally unattached, totally free. Tattavittu Mahabaho guna karma vibhagayoha guna guneshu vartante idimattva nasajjate. Those who are highly evolved, who know the truth about this character of sattva-guna, rajo-guna, tamo-guna, and the functions of mind, vritti, samskaras, etc., they remain totally free from any kind of attachment. They may be active, they may work very hard, with great concentration, with success, still they remain unaffected, totally non-attached. Because they are aware of the fact that they are one with the Atman, and these indriyas and indriyarthas, senses and sense objects, they function according to these sattva, rajas, tamo gunas, or accumulated vrittis and vasanas, samskaras, etc. But Atman remains totally unaffected by all this. So these ideas we will discuss again when we reach the third chapter. Another very important verse is referred to here, Tathacha sarva karmani manasa sannyasyasti sukhambasi, etc. Here also another important verse is referred to here. In fact, this verse is very important because there is a long discussion that we are going to start between Bhashyakara, Adi Shankara, and the Purvamimamsakas around this particular verse. So it is very important. The verse is in the 5th chapter, 13th verse of the 5th chapter. Sarva karmani manasa sannyasyaaste sukhambasi navadware pure dehi naiva kurvan nakarayan. This is a very important verse in this Bhashya context, Prakarana, because there is a lot of discussion, debates, exchange of views and ideas between the Purvamimamsakas and Advaitin, that is Bhashyakara, centering around this particular verse. So the verse is this, again you have to remember, 13th verse of 5th chapter. How does an Atmajnani who considers himself to be different and distinct from Indriyas, Mana, Buddhi, Chitta, Ahankara, etc., how does an Atmajnani remains unaffected, rests serenely? So there is an imagery behind this verse.
The whole human body of my body-mind complex is conceived to be a city or a fort. And there is a king who is residing in the city. The king is Atman. And the king has many servants, Indriyas, the five senses of perception and the five senses of action, are the servants of the king. Jnanendriyas, Panchajnanendriyas and Panchakarmendriyas. Buddhi is a minister, he is an intelligent person. Ahankara, the ego system, egoity, is a young prince, the crown prince. Naturally, crown prince will not allow the king to stay in peace if he is a mischievous person. And mind is the architect who builds the city. And the king, though he is accompanied all the time by the servants, the Indriyas, and there is a minister, Buddhi, intellect. This Ahankara, the crown prince, his youngest, his eldest son may be the next heir apparent, is Ahankara, and mind is the architect, the builder of the city. All these people are around him, but he remains totally unaffected. Sukham Vasi. Vasi means he is always unaffected. He is free. He is completely under. He established self-control. He is serene. He sits there. Now, the meaning of the word is this. The city has got 9 gates or 9 doors opening the outside. So, Atman is the king who is totally unaffected, is serene, he rests, he is free. But around him, moving about around him, are his servants, the Indriyas, then his Buddhi, the minister, his mind, who is the architect, his Ahankara, who is the crown prince, all around. And there are 9 openings, 9 doors, 9 gates opening to the outside. 7 of them above the neck and 2 of them below. The 2 eyes, the 2 ears, the 2 parts of the nostril and mouth. These are 7 openings above the neck, and below Gudam and Upastha. Upastham and Gudam, the 2 openings. So, altogether there are 9 openings. In the Bhashyam, elsewhere Shankaracharya says, if you want to become wise, if you want to become intelligent, if you want to think of higher things in this world, higher than bodily pleasures, sensual pleasures, just remember the nature of our body. Body is wonderful as an instrument for spiritual practices, for higher pursuits, because they will help us to go beyond body consciousness. So bodily health, youth, all these are very good, so long as this body is used for a higher purpose. So Sharira Madhyam Khalu Dharma Sadhanam, you find in the Kumara Sambhava, Kalidasa says, Apikriyartham Sulabham Samit Kusam Jidani Vishnani Vidhikshamanite Api Susaktya Tabasi Pravartase Sharira Madhyam Khalu Dharma Sadhanam. It's a Shiva testing, coming as a brahmachari, test Uma, test her penance, tapasya. So it is. This body is an important instrument. Mallinatha in Sanjeevani Vyakhyana says, Adhyam Mukhyam Sadhanam. It's an instrument, it's a tool for us to do noble deeds. And the mind that's working with the body is an instrument for thinking noble thoughts. And intellect is a wonderful instrument for studying noble things, noble ideas. So if you use the body as an instrument for higher spiritual purpose, the body will teach you how to go beyond itself. For that we should remember that anything that comes out of these 9 doors, Navadwara, is something that we don't want to touch without washing hands after that. So, Navadware pure dehi naiva kurvanna karya. Atman is the inner resident, the indweller, the antaryami, remaining within the city. But Atman is not affected by those who are moving around the city or what is going on within the city, like a king who is a philosopher king. So that's the essence of this mantra. Sarva karmani manasa sanyasyaste sukham vasi navadware puredehi naiva kurvan nagarayan. Sometimes you find another version, Padaveda navadware puredehi. In that case, the deha should be taken as the body which is endowed with 9 doors, 9 openings opening to the outside. So, Sarvani karmani sarva karmani sanyasya parityaja nityam naimittikam kamim pratishiddham cha sarva karmani tani manasa viveka buddhya karmadu akarma sandasanena santyajya ityarthaha aste tisthati sukham. So Bhashyakara says, those highly evolved spiritual seekers who have renounced the entire actions through discrimination, discerning mind, through the practice of the wisdom of discerning wisdom, spiritual wisdom, by understanding what is real and what is unreal. They have given up all these Vedic rituals. Not that they have deliberately given them up by just throwing them out, but rather they are transcended, they have gone beyond any obligation, any kind of obligation to perform any of these duties. That is Nityam, Naimittikam, Kamyam, Pratishiddham, etc. There are certain Vedic rituals which have to be performed every day. If you don't perform them, it will be a great mistake. If you perform them, it may not accrue any special benefits called Nitya Karma, Naimittika Karma. Certain nimitta during certain seasons, certain change, certain special causes. Karma Karma, certain Vedic rituals are performed with a special purpose as prescribed in the scriptures, Surga Karma, Ejeda, etc. Pratishiddha Karma, karmas of certain rituals, certain things which we should not do. All these should be renounced. Renunciation could also mean practice of total detachment. So this verse is going to be a center of an important point of discussion in the next sessions. Here Bhashyakara makes a very interesting point. There are some people who will tell you, well, some misguided philosopher will tell you, but it's only a theory, it's only a word, it's only a concept. You cannot give up all these actions. It's only an idea. Real knowledge cannot come. It's only book knowledge. You talk about renunciation, talk about spiritual liberation, talk about avarakshana bhuti, all these. Well, these are all just certain words, certain ideas, certain concepts, certain paradigms, not something that anyone can actually experience. These are the views of some misguided people who think they are great philosophers. They are not enlightened people, though they think they are very enlightened. Tatra kejit pandidam manyaha vadanti Janmadi Shadbhava Kriyarahida Avikriya Akarta Eka Aham Atma Idi Na Kasidi Jnanam Utpadyade Yasmin Sadi Sarva Karma Sannyasa Upadishyade. So they make this statement. These are all very wonderful ideas but not actually possible. So Bhashyakara Sri Shankaracharya refused this view. So there are people who will tell you this knowledge really never comes. Na Kasidi Jnanam Utpadyade. This knowledge is just an idea. Now what kind of knowledge? Janmadi Shadbhava Kriya Rehida Avikriya Akarta Ekaham Atma. The realization that I am the Atman, the immutable, Akarta, the non-doer, the one who is Sadvikara Rehida, like birth, existence, growth, evolution, decay, death, etc. No such thing really happens in actual life, in experience. It's only a concept. So, and then the idea that you should practice Sarva Karma Sannyasa in order to attain the highest knowledge. Remember, Sarva Karma Sannyasa is a natural state of spiritual evolution. It is not that we physically, arbitrarily give up any work. When we transcend a particular stage, we naturally feel that those actions which we have been doing are of no relevance today. Children, when little babies may be asking for toys or toffees or sweets, but when you grow up, you won't ask for those toys or sweets or candies. Candies may be a big deal for a baby, a little child, but they don't mean anything for grown-up people. Like that, the physical, empirical pleasures, material pleasures may be a great deal, a big deal for those who are working for those physical enjoyments, physical prosperity, empirical prosperity, and so on. But others who have understood their impermanent nature will not be attracted towards them. Like that, these Purvamimamsakas cannot think of anything other than continuous perpetual enjoyment of material pleasures. So they are asking this question. So Bhashyakara will reply. It's an important and very interesting discussion. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Pranamastu.